after like 100-something hours, I had not even touched the base building mechanic because
Yeah,
I
if you have
frankly
a
didn't see
mobile
the
base,
reason
why
why.
would you? Yeah.
I didn't understand the reason why. To like store extra equipment, then I got to go back to my base all the time to get my equipment. On a recent episode of the show, we were talking a little bit about base building. And you wanted to talk a little bit more about the actual mechanics of base building.
Yeah.
And now I've given you a little bit of time to play some
I've
of them.
spent all of that time not thinking about base building.
Perfect. Great. Well, now you get to.
So I don't remember exactly what we talked about then because that's been weeks ago at this point. But base building is something that a lot of games, especially like survival games
Yes.
or colony games, for instance, have. There's different types of base building. I wanted to more so talk about the kind of game where you actually go in by hand and build a base more than an RTS where you are placing buildings.
Oh, sure, yeah.
So either a survival game or a Minecraft type game, or even say The Sims has building mechanics. Something like that.
Sure, yeah, okay.
And so that kind of building mechanic. And there's a bunch of different ways you can do it. Obviously, all games kind of have their own way of doing things a little differently. You've played Valheim, right?
I've played Valheim, yeah.
So that one's got, how stable things are.
Sure.
So you can't, if you build out too far and there's no support, it'll collapse.
That's true.
That's cool. That's a cool building mechanic. Then there's games like Minecraft. It's very blocky. It's you place a block, you place a block, you place a block, and then if it's a block that is affected by gravity without a block underneath it, it just falls to the ground. But you can place blocks midair. They're fine.
The actual physics of something like Minecraft are non-existent when it comes to structural support.
More or less. Yeah, I mean, water does flow down to the lowest point.
And lava will, flow if you get there.
But otherwise, physics don't really matter in Minecraft.
I can sit on clouds if I wanted to in Minecraft, so there's that.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of different types of building mechanics you can have in games, and some of them are good, some of them are bad, and some of them are just tedious as fuck.
Yeah, so tell me about some of the tedious ones, because I'm thinking about it too, and the fact of the matter is that a lot of times when they introduce a base building mechanic, my initial thought is, oh god, this is going to take me so much time that I never will actually get the benefits from having.
What was that game you played recently during Next Fest? And you were like, yeah, it gives you 1,000 bricks because you have to place them all down by hand.
Oh, Enshrouded. It was Enshrouded.
Yeah,
yes.
You were telling me about that, and that's why I think I originally had thought of talking about base building and just building mechanics.
Yeah, that's when we were talking about it originally. It was like if you craft this 5 stone or something, they'll give you 100 stone bricks, and then you get these tiny little stone bricks, and you have to place them all individually. You can't make a wall. You can't say, hey, I want to build a wall, and it has to be this high and stuff, and just place a ton of bricks at one time. You got to manually place them down.
See, I don't mind that in a simulation game.
Sure.
So if you're saying playing something like a House Flipper, or there's a House Builder I've tried, because those games are just kind of relaxing to me, in that sense, that is fine. But if it's not a simulation game, Enshrouded is a survival game?
It's a survival game, yeah.
That is not something I want to do in a survival game. I understand that it's more realistic for the survival, but I don't want to. I'm not going to build a wall if it means I have to place down 500 planks.
Exactly. It is too much. It is too much to deal with.
It's just a time sink for me. It's I have other things I want to do in my life right now.
Yeah.
And another game that I just recently tried again that I had gotten a couple of years ago now. Thought it sounded interesting, but just didn't vibe well, was the game Eco, which I think I talked about at one point.
A little bit. What's the deal with Eco, though?
So, it's supposed to be, a multiplayer experience. You can build buildings and factories and things like that, but you start from, the ground up.
Mm-hmm.
So you're chopping trees and mining and doing all that. But everything you want to do requires like a person being trained in that skill.
Sure.
So even me at the beginning of the game, it's like, all right, I want to, maybe I can learn carpentry. And it's like, you need a skill book for that. Someone to be able to train with it. I was like, what? This does not explain any of this. Okay, I'll just go chop some trees down. And it's like, okay. So you chop some trees, but then you've got to carry them back.
Yeah.
Like 1, 2, or 3 at a time. And it's like back and forth, back and forth. So it becomes really tedious because you like, I pick up a shovel full of dirt. And now I need to go walk it somewhere else and dump it. And then go back and pick up a shovel full of dirt.
Oh no.
So either that, or I could pick up a shovel full of dirt here and drop it in the tile next to me. And just keep doing that. But
right.
It's not like it goes into an inventory.
Yeah.
Unless you're close to a camp or something.
Right.
So it becomes very tedious.
That reminds me of Grounded, which you've seen me play on this show, but when you get to Blades of Grass, I have to carry the Blades of Grass. They don't go into my inventory. So you have to carry, and you can only carry like a stack of 5, and you have to get them onto a pallet. And so now you're just creating this tedious like supply chain thing that you have to deal with in order to get one thing to another area, and it's just busy work.
Which is, yeah, it's busy work. Which is fine if you can find a way to make it easier. For instance, in your case for Grounded, I would say have the ability to make some kind of sled you can pull behind you that you can stack a ton of grass on.
Yeah,
I don't think you can do that.
I'm going to hire the ladybugs, and I'm going to make the ladybugs carry my blades of grass around for me. They're work ladybugs.
Yeah. Like, I don't expect a game to always be like... like, I don't expect a game to be like, yeah, you can just do it like Fallout 4, for instance, has base building, technically. You can build stuff in there.
Yes, very much so.
That one's kind of an afterthought in that game, but it's simple enough that it's not hard to do.
And something that they did in Fallout 4 that I would have liked to see in more of these base building games is having prefab designs. So that if you don't want to just start from scratch and you can unlock different designs, you can say, hey, let's make a small shack, a large shack. You need this much for resources. If you have it in your inventory or you have it in your chests, that's the other thing. Make sure that your chests are accessible from your work library. You just build it where you want to place it. This has saved me like an hour of trying to build from scratch and put every little piece down, which, is very useful for those sorts of games. So I would definitely suggest that. The thing that gets annoying for me when I'm trying to build bases in games is when I realize I'm spending more time building the bases than I am actually, like, completing the game. Or when I'm spending more time worried about going out and collecting resources to build the base than I am, like, exploring the game itself. Which is what I'd like to be doing. Please.
I mean, I enjoy base building, for the most part. If it's done well, it's really cool, because if there's a lot of different versatility you can do with a base, or if the base serves a purpose other than just being somewhere to sleep.
Sure.
Like, I enjoy the simulation games, so, like, building a house in The Sims, enjoyable.
Sure.
It's like, I'm going to live here, this is where my game is taking place, and I can alter it when I need to for the gameplay, and that's cool. I enjoy that. House Flipper 2 is going to have stuff you can build houses in, but the way, if you've played House Flipper, the way you can build things and the way you put down flooring and the walls, painting, and all that stuff is relaxing, is enjoyable. It's not tedious because it's not bad to do. It's fun enough to do, but it's also not just busy work because, like, it's part of the game.
Well, see, that's the thing, is that in things like House Flipper, the actual, like, essentially base building mechanics or the building mechanics are central to the game. You're building it out, and that is the game itself. So it is more than just an activity that you do. But when you get into RPGs and survival games where it's sort of like another thing you do in addition, you start to realize that a lot of it is tedium that you do to get to the actual game. Which is going out and exploring and going into caves and, you know, and fighting monsters and stuff like that, you know. All of that good stuff. And so then you're just spending an inordinate amount of time building your base. This happened to me, actually, since we were just talking about the Game Awards, one of the nominees, which was Starfield. Because Starfield actually has a whole base building mechanic I didn't really even touch for the most part, where you can build bases on different planets. But they do also have the shipbuilding mechanic. And what you'll start to realize when you get into the shipbuilding mechanic is, because it's your mobile base, essentially.
Right.
Is that you're spending an inordinate amount of time trying to relay out your ship so that it can actually move. It has the necessary power requirements, and that you can arrange it so that it makes sense for all of your cargo capacity, which takes up a lot of space, you know, and takes up a lot of mass. But then you also need to be able to have the whole thing fly, and you also want, like, your HABs to be able to give you workstations and stuff like that. So you have to lay it out so that you can access all of it. And I found that there were times where you'd end up spending, like, an entire hour just remodifying your ship around so that it works appropriately, which, you know, once you do it and then realize, oh, this sucks, that's always a kick in the pants to have that happen to you, which it did on several occasions. But like, as I said, I didn't even touch, after like 100-something hours, I had not even touched the base building mechanic, because I frankly didn't see the reason why.
Would you? Yeah.
I didn't understand the reason why. To, like, store extra equipment, then I got to go back to my base all the time to get my equipment.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too, is when you have, like, storage, for instance. A lot of times in these games, especially survival games, storage is not linked anywhere.
Yeah.
You have to go, if you want something from a chest, you have to go find the chest. And you'll have, like, 2,000 chests, you know? What No Man's Sky does, for instance, though, is a little nicer, where they have the storage vaults.
Yes.
And you can have them on your freighter, and you can have them on your bases. And if your freighter is equipped with a teleporter, you can look at your freighter's cargo from anywhere else.
Yes, that was a big addition for them, too, because they didn't used to have that.
Right, and the fact that all your storage containers, if you build a couple in your base, they are all the same storage containers if you're in another base, or if you're on your freighter. It is all shared storage.
Right. So that's the next thing, is make sure to link your storage somehow, or have the ability to link your storage.
Yeah.
Please.
That's something New World did terribly at the beginning. Not even a base building game, but each individual township in that game, all of the banks for where you put your storage stuff in storage, they were all disconnected. And it was like, why? It's like, oh, we want people to, like, factional warfare and, like, take over towns and stuff. But it's like, okay, we understand this, that you want the PvP. But, like, I don't want to have to go back to this town owned by another faction to get my stuff out if I want to do stuff. And the only reason there, specifically, I think, would be to store things in different locations, would be, oh, maybe this town's got better workshops for this crafting, and this one has better stuff for armor crafting. So I'll store my armor crafting stuff in one spot, and I'll store my other things where that's useful. But even then, just link all your banks together.
You know, what's interesting is, I mentioned on the last episode that I've been playing War Tales. And they have an inventory issue there where, you know, your crew can carry only so much weight. And once you get to a certain level in your accolades, you can put down these trade posts in the major towns and buy them. And there you have, like, this unlimited storage chest where you can put stuff in. In that game, though, the stuff does stay in the specific storage that you put it in. So if I have it in this region, when I go to the other region, I don't have instant access. But they do something that's interesting for, I guess, for the world building of it, but also to make it a little bit more accessible. If you have an object, or you have a weapon, armor, something like that, you kept in another chest, you can pay a fee to have it transported to the one that you're currently at.
Okay.
So that, if I'm willing to shell out a little bit of gold, like 50 gold, this object that's in another place, I don't have to travel there. It will come to me. And so that's the trade-off. No.
So, I know this is all tangential to base building at this point. It's fine.
But it is actually kind of important to base building because it's one of the reasons you do it.
Right. So this is, again, tangential to base building, but of all the games that let you do something similar to that, Elite Dangerous.
Oh, okay.
And it's not necessarily storage of items, because anything that you want to store, you have in your ships. You don't get bases. So if you want items in your inventory, mostly just for trade, they're in your ship inventory and not a base. But your ships, on the other hand, if you want to get your ship if you're several systems away and you don't want to go fetch your a spaceship, a specific one that you've got, you can just have it transferred. It'll be like, pay this money for the cost, like it, and it'll take this amount of time, but we will deliver your ship to you.
Oh, sure.
It makes moving your, like, if you've got 5 or 6 ships and you're making your base in your home system, a new system, halfway across the galaxy, just ship them over.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
And that's really nice.
Yeah, I think that this actually gets us to a question that we haven't really addressed yet on this segment, which is, what's the actual purpose of base building in the games? And like, when we're talking about storage, like, that seems to be a thing where it's like, I just keep getting encumbered. I need to put my stuff in a place, so I need to store it somewhere. And that is one reason, but I feel like there should be more to base building and more to the reason why you have the base than just, I want to store my stuff somewhere.
I feel like most of the time it is utility as both storage and a place to craft.
That too, because you have crafting stations you can put up, workbenches.
I'm curious if you could play a game that would require you to have crafting and storage without storage. Or without utilizing much of the base building at all, really. I know for some games it'd probably be really impossible or really hard, but it'd be interesting to see.
Well, if you're just looking to do the crafting, but you don't have to worry about the space considerations, I got a few games that Piranha Bytes did that don't have any real storage limits. So you can carry everything on you all the time, but you would have to seek out crafting stations in the world to utilize it to do stuff with them. So like your Elixes and your Risens and those kinds of games, or Gothic. Yeah, but all of those famously have the one nice convenience of having unlimited storage space. You can keep as much as you want on you at any time.
There you go.
But they don't really have bases in that game at all. I mean, you have like a central location where like your teammates and stuff hang out, but there's no base that you build in those, which I guess doesn't really function. That the other thing too in survival games that you'll see bases used for too is as a defensive post. Because when I build my house in Grounded, it's mostly to try and keep the spiders out.
Right, as one does.
Me. Yeah, because you don't want spiders coming into your house. I don't. So, at any rate, you need to do it as a defensive thing. That also happened to me in Valheim. The little monsters come and little gremlins try to beat up your base in that game. So, I guess as a defensive structure, sure. As a storage area, sure. As a crafting area, sure. The other thing, though, and maybe it's just me, is I think it should have a certain hominess to it. Like if you're playing a survival game, I think the idea is, from an aesthetic standpoint, it's there to contrast that very harsh world that you're in with a safe haven And,
Sure.
and that's more of a story beat or like an actual role-playing beat than anything else. But I think it has to do that. One of the reasons why you see a lot of decorations listed in like base building mechanics about like trophies I can put on my wall or fireplaces that don't really serve for any reason. They don't.
Yeah,
keep me
my
warm.
thought on those is that decorations are fine, but I feel like if you give them a reason to exist,
Oh, sure.
like if they provide some kind of passive bonus, perhaps,
Sure.
then it would make them more more attractive to like actually use.
Right, like you can think that maybe from if you have psychological meters or something, decoration improves the quality of your rest time or something like that.
Right, like if you have more decorations in where your bed is, you could have more comfort, and more comfort gives you like, if you have an energy meter or stamina, maybe it makes you have a buff after you sleep. Something like that would make
Yeah.
decorations more useful.
Right, and if you do have thermal meters, obviously fires are going to be useful for that. If you have anything like that, they do have similar things to that in like Valheim, for instance. I don't mind base building, but I would like to see a lot of those systems that are more streamlined, and I would like to see that the usefulness of it is more than just, hey, you can build a base now and store your shit in it.
Yeah.
Out of all the games that you've played, though,
Oh dear.
do you have an example that you would particularly want to cite as doing base building well overall? It's harder than you think, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah, no.
I don't think I have one offhand. I'd have to look through my Steam library.
I also fall into this problem because every time I start thinking about a game where I had to do base building or it was an option, I think about things that I didn't like about it.
Yeah.
Not about things
Like,
that I enjoyed.
Like I could just say, like I could just say No Man's Sky, but it still has the issue of, the being like snapping together how you build it, and then the landscape just kind of comes back sometimes. Like that's an issue it still has.
Yeah, and games like No Man's Sky or even Subnautica, or we both played Breathage recently, which has a similar kind of mechanic, is that a lot of it feels like, oh, I'm making a base for the sake of making a base. There's not tons of utility to them, except for, I gotta get out of the harshness of the world that I'm in right now. And in Breathage, it's because you're running out of oxygen, and in Subnautica, it's because you're running out of oxygen. And in No Man's Sky, it's because there's probably a thermal storm coming or something like that. So there's that. But most of the time, you're putting down the bases for the sake of having a base of operations on whatever planet you're on. So I can't really say. Every time I think about it, I'm like, yeah, this is stuff I didn't like about this system for the base building. And that's annoying because it seems like it's in every game, or it's in so many, and yet there's always some kind of problem. Either it's that it doesn't have the utility that you want, that you spend too much time on it, that it's all about just doing storage, that I have to spend an inordinate amount of time to build it, that it doesn't snap together correctly, or that the UI doesn't work right, and it's annoying because you would think with as many games that do it, one of them would perfect it.
Yeah.
One of them would perfect it, and I haven't seen it yet. And Shrouded is definitely not it.
Maybe come December when I get House Flipper 2, I'll be like, wow, this game did it so well. It is now my favorite house and or base building game.
If it happens, you come on, we'll do a segment. We will talk about House Flipper 2.
We can talk about it regardless, so it's fine.
Yeah, we'll talk about it, and we'll see if it is that example, regardless. So
there you go.
There you go. If any of you out there, though, have an example of a really good system for base building out there, and you have a game that you might want us to look into, let me know, because I'm always looking for games that can perfect these systems specifically. Maybe it's one I'm familiar with, maybe it's one I have kicking around Steam and I just never got around to playing, so you let me know in the comments down below.